The Dallas Cowboys lose in overtime. What does this mean for the rest of their season? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, what's going on, sir?
Not much. We got a heck of a game to talk about. I mean, at the very least, what a crazy game this was. One of a sea of very bizarre games that happened today on as we enter in the last month of the season. So the Cowboys
lose in overtime to Jacksonville on a wild interception, and not even in the top three wildest finishes of Week 15. Right, the Vikings come back. We had an insane game with the Raiders. The Texans took the Chiefs to overtime. Mm-hmm. Justin Herbert had a ridiculous comeback against the Titans. I mean, just a wild day altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. Just chaos. I mean, especially this felt like September football in December, honestly. It was very bizarre.
All right, before we talk about the offense and the defense and what went wrong in this game against Jacksonville, big picture, how concerning is this loss for the Cowboys to you?
I mean, the loss is not all that concerning to me, honestly. It's a non-conference, opponent. It's, look, it's concerning in the fact that you needed to be kind of perfect to get a chance to win the East, and to have an opportunity to get like a higher seeding. And so that's kind of out the window at this point. I mean, you got to beat the Eagles and then they got to lose basically the rest of their games, I would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, now Dallas has to win out and the Eagles have to lose out
in order to get that. So, I mean, you're pretty much at this point locked into the fifth seed of the playoffs, the NFC playoff seeding. It's frustrating, and especially the manner in which it happened. But honestly, I outside of kind of maybe dashing a very outside dream at this point, or further kind of putting it out of our reach, it's about as inconsequential a loss as you're going to have, I mean, in late season, I would think, outside of whatever injuries we may have incurred. That's really where I'm concerned.
Where this game hurts is it kind of makes next week's game against the Eagles just not all that important.
Yeah,
exactly. As fans, we were hoping that game would be for the division, right?
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
If the Cowboys won it, hey, they're going to be leading the NFC East after 16 weeks. That wasn't going to happen anyways with the Eagles winning against the Bears.
There were points at moments in time during this game when you could have looked at the score of the Cowboys game and looked at the score of what was happening in the Eagles game, and it looked like it was going to happen. There were times when it looked like the Bears are going to pull off an upset against the Eagles, and the Cowboys were obviously going to win this game. But unfortunately, neither one of those things happened, and the Cowboys kind of get a game further from their goal as far as trying to unseat the Eagles as the champs in the NFC East.
Here's why this loss is concerning for me. We thought all year long that, hey, if teams want to drop back and throw the ball 45 times against Dallas, that's when the Cowboys are going to win, right? They can just play that game better than anybody else because of their offense and then their pass rushers. Jacksonville had 43 dropbacks in this game. They scored 40 points. I know 6 of them were on defense. Their quarterback threw 4 touchdowns, and the Cowboys really didn't have a lot of answers on defense. That's worrisome for me. I think teams are starting to figure out how to beat the Cowboys through the air.
I mean, I don't know that I don't think it's about figuring anything out. I mean, I think the thing that Jacksonville schematically I felt was able to take advantage of was a lot of the misdirection and attacking the edge, especially once Leighton was gone. That was a way that they could get their run game going. But I think honestly, in the past game, they simply were being beat. Like the Cowboys were not getting home. The opportunities that Trevor Lawrence had to throw the ball deep, like I mean, we can sit here and blame, and they certainly did. They pulled Kelvin Joseph, near halftime. You can certainly blame coverage for a lot of this stuff if you want. But honestly, like there was just too many times when Trevor Lawrence had all day in the pocket and didn't get any kind of pressure in his face. Or if he did, they weren't able to finish. I mean, there was
late pressure or whatever, right?
Yeah, like they got hits, they got touches on Lawrence, but they certainly weren't affecting him the way that we've been come to expect with this pass rush. So, yeah, I would say that I agree as far as the long-term performance concerns I have of this team. The ones that I'm most concerned about are the pass rush, because you would need it. You rely on it defensively. It's supposed to be a strength of your team. And for 2 weeks in a row against inferior opponents, you have not played necessarily up to what the expectation level has been.
The other thing for me is like, the Cowboys were controlling this game at multiple points, and they just couldn't put it away, right? They're up 27-10. They allowed Jacksonville to take a 31-27 lead. You're up by 3 with a minute and a half left. You need 1 first down to put the game away, and the clock management was so poor. The Cowboys, I think, they didn't even gain a yard on those 3 plays. Situational football. You need to tackle a guy, Evan Ingram, to keep him in bounds, and he's able to drag Jaron Kearse out of bounds. It just seems like the Cowboys had so many opportunities in this game to win it, and they just couldn't do it. And I think if you've been a little bit pessimistic about the Cowboys' chances this year, and you think this is the same old Cowboys, I think this is a game that you can point to and say, yep, this is why this team isn't going to go that far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there's always reasons to point for that if you're like that, for sure. I think, look, there was a lot of situational problem stuff that like, looking back, because the ball didn't bounce the way we wanted to, that it's easy to kind of second guess. It's like that deep throw that they made to Noah Brown on the 3rd and 10. It hit his hands. You got to catch that ball. It's like the pick six. Honestly, you got to catch that ball. I think there are times when the Cowboys don't execute, and that happens. But there are also times when the Cowboys don't execute and they get bad luck, right? When the ball, it's not just that they don't catch it, it's that they volleyball the ball up into the air, and the other team gets the interception in a key moment and returns it for a touchdown. It's stuff like that. So they've got to kind of. And that's why, honestly, I don't blame McCarthy for going for it on that 3rd and 10, because he was trying to take the game away at that point, because there was just a lot of bad bounce stuff. And
it just seemed like there's a better way to do it than a 50-yard YOLO ball.
I understand. I mean, that was the route that came up with there. But as far as the choice to go for it and kind of throw the ball on 3rd and 10, I understand it, but I think, again, execution failed them at times when, and that's the thing too, is that it was not like, it was Dak Prescott not pitching or pitching the ball on that 3rd down when he should have kept it to convert. It's Noah Brown who, had 2 touchdowns for you earlier in the game, having the ball bounce off his hands into another defender. So that's what I think was frustrating, is that it wasn't even players that were having good games that game. We're having moments of lapse, concentration, and that's all it took. And then so all it took was the lapse of concentration combined with bad luck, and it became a huge play going the other way.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna break it all down from every angle. Lot going on here. But before we do that, I'll let you know that this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a user manual. So when it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck. Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and help you learn productive coping skills, which makes therapy the closest thing to a guided tour of the complex engine called you. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, secure, and accessible anywhere, 100% online. Everyone deserves to feel their best. BetterHelp makes it easy to get started. As the world's largest therapy service, they've matched millions of people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked-on. We also want to let you guys know about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Landon, let's talk about the Cowboys defense in this game. They allowed 500 yards to Jacksonville in this game, 503 yards, 26 first downs. Jacksonville had 192 rushing yards. Why couldn't Dallas get stops in this game?
Well, again, I think, the start of it to me was Leighton Vander Esch getting hurt early in this game. And then that combined with just all the, incredible misdirection that they were running, which really confused the kind of linebackers that they had in there. I mean, Deron Bland was in there, obviously just because you wanted him in there, but he's always good to be in there with kind of someone with more experience.
Damone Clark.
Damone Clark. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. See, I did it again. I'm constantly mixing. Damone Clark was in there, and you want him in there because of his athleticism. You obviously want him to get these reps so he can become more experienced. But I think, without Leighton Vander Esch on there to kind of, having seen some of this misdirection before, having played against the Eagles all those years and having seen kind of what goes on, within this sort of offense, that inexperience really, really hurt the Cowboys at the second level. And Anthony Barr just didn't seem up to the task. He just couldn't get out in front of the blocks. He looks slow. And I think that is, they basically were attacking the edges because no one was able to get there in time, and they were using a lot of jet sweep and misdirection action. And all it took was just a little bit of an edge, and they were able to turn the corner, and they have explosive players on this team, and they were able to get them in good spots. And then you add that combined with the fact that they gave up huge plays in the pass game, which is just not, something that they're normally doing. And it's both. Like, if you want to ask if it's coverage, if it's pass rush, it's certainly both. Like, I mean, you definitely had a situation where Zay Jones absolutely toast Joseph for a long touchdown. You had certain situations where guys were covered, it had it all covered. And then so much time developed in the pocket, and he and Lawrence was able to just buy more and more time, and no one was getting to him and getting him on the ground. That plays became developed open. So, we got to see the all 22 to know for sure. But I just know that from 10,000 foot view, they clearly had a plan, and they spammed the idea of misdirection runs that would continue to have success. And then they mixed in deep passing, which they didn't pay any consequence for at all in getting their quarterback hit, or kind of, getting interceptions. Well, I mean, obviously Bland had one, but they didn't pay a huge price considering how much success they ended up having and by the end of the game, especially, the third quarter.
And the other problem is their pass rush, right? Like, Micah Parsons had quite a few pressures in this game. He got a sack. But the problem is you didn't get a lot from anybody else. Like DeMarcus Lawrence, we talk him up all the time. He just was non-existent. Dorrance Armstrong had a few pressures.
But he was out for a long part of the game.
He was out for a while. Sam Williams had a few pressures.
Watkins got his hands on him and couldn't bring him to the ground. I mean, it didn't end up mattering, but it was like it was just very indicative of what was happening. They were getting there and getting hands on him, but not knocking him down, not affecting him.
Yeah, and your 4 interior defensive linemen. Again, this is some early numbers from PFF. Oso Odighizuwa, Neville Gallimore, Carlos Watkins, Quentin Bohanna, and if you had Chauncey Golston in there, had 1 pressure, and it's the one that you're mentioning from Carlos Watkins. Like, that's not enough. Like, you need those guys. They don't have to win a ton, but they've got to win more than 1 time in a game combined. Like, that's just not good enough.
It makes sense early in the game because early in the game, they were getting the ball out early. They were throwing the ball fast. They weren't trying to get the Cowboys pass rush. But by the end of the game, they weren't afraid at all of throwing the ball deep and continually after realizing it's kind of like dipping their toes in the water at first, right? Okay, it didn't get hurt. By the end of the game, they were just fully diving, cannonballing, into the passing game without any fear of retribution, any fear of getting hit or anything happening to them.
Let me ask you this. Cowboys have had some issues on defense since the Green Bay game, but it's been so sprinkled in because they played poorly in Green Bay. They looked awesome against Minnesota. At times they looked good against the Giants. The fourth quarter, they were awesome against the Colts. So it's weird, but how fixable do you think the Cowboys' problems are on defense?
I mean, I think that they're fixable. I think that it's more just a case of playing better. I mean, look, again, the injury stuff, that's the stuff we got to worry about because, like, if Leighton Vander Esch is out for any long period of time, you got to be concerned about what you saw at linebacker. So I think that stuff has some problems that we got to look at. But I think that, the pass rush stuff to me is guys just got to, like, play better. I mean, like, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, you're more talented than their starters, and their starters got hurt. So what's their both of their offensive tackles were both out of the game at certain points. So what's going on? Like you even if it's just 4 opportunities of drop back passes for you to get to the quarterback, you kind of convert it. Like you got to convert it, and it just wasn't happening. And the defense was able to kind of make plays when you needed them at certain points finally. And then when they finally did, the Cowboys offense weren't able to kind of accentuate those moments. And that's, when it became at a certain point in the like middle of the third quarter, the offense and the defense became like a negative feedback loop with itself. Right.
Yeah.
It's like the Cowboys couldn't stop anybody. And then finally they do get a stop. And it's kind of a moment like, okay, let's rally around this. And then the Cowboys 3 and out so fast that it basically has no effect on the end of the game. And the Jaguars are able to tie it up, and then obviously, again, like good moments in the defense. The Cowboys defense automatically steps up in the overtime, but then a game that you think you've got it won, you feel confident that the Cowboys are going to be able to march down into at least field goal zone where you've got one of the things that you do feel like you're reliable with is, which is crazy to say, is your kicker. And then the unthinkable obviously happens. I mean, there was just several key moments at that end of the game where things went from bad to worse. Like that's what it was. Like things were going okay, they were bad, and then suddenly it just went terrible.
Yeah.
And that was too much for the Cowboys to win. And Trevor Lawrence was playing too good there in the third and fourth quarter.
There was a moment on offense in this game where it felt like, this is their chance to close it, and they just didn't do it. I want to talk about that side of it in just a second. But before we do that, let's tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Eurobasketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They are currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. You deposit $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Liam, the Cowboys offense, for the most part, really good this game. You put up 34 points. They were moving the ball pretty efficiently. There was a drive in this game that I felt like turned the momentum around. And I'll give it to you. Jacksonville in the second half, their second drive of the game, they threw an interception on like the fourth play. The Cowboys start with the ball at Jacksonville's 42-yard line, up 24 to 10, right? You get a touchdown and you go up 31 to 10. This game is over. It is. Here's that drive for Dallas. They go Tony Pollard -2-yard run, Dak Prescott to Schultz 9 yards, and then they passed it Tony Pollard deep down the sideline in double coverage, incomplete. Dallas has to kick a field goal. They make it. From that point on, the game went touchdown Jacksonville, interception Dallas, touchdown Jacksonville, punt Dallas, touchdown Jacksonville. It's just those little moments this year the Cowboys haven't been able to like capitalize on. And that's what's so frustrating. It's like, hey, the defense gets you an awesome stop, gives you great field position, and you gain 9 yards. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it felt like in the second half the Cowboys really struggled to consistently run the ball the way that they did in the first half, and I think that that's something that was, really kind of a huge difference. Is that it wasn't even just a matter of like them, only getting 2 or 3 yards. It was like they were getting no yards, or they had several negative runs, and it's just. I don't worry about that necessarily I don't worry about the negative running aspect long term, because I think part of that is a result of all the kind of offensive line shuffling that's been going on. I think once they figure that out a little bit more, and maybe Jason Peters' injury or whatever happened with him, I know he came back, but maybe that kind of does finalize things there a little bit more. But I do think that, that's part is there's like a level of frustration that happens, that like it feels like there are drives that happen in the second half where the Cowboys suddenly just don't have answers when they've had answers all game,
weird. It's weird.
and it's like, they get into 1 or 2 negative plays in like, the first early parts of the downs, and they can't overcome it. And it's not like they don't. It's not like that there aren't times when they get behind the chains, like in the middle of a drive. Like it always seems to be a situation where they can't get that first down.
It's that first one. Once they get off the schneid a little bit, right? They're fine.
Yeah.
It's just that first.
It's that
and sometimes it's
first,
not even the
first
first down. It's just the first yard of a drive. Like just having one successful play to get started.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of right where they're having problems is, there'll be a penalty, which there wasn't so much of an issue here this game, but like there'll be a negative run, and it feels like there's been more of those lately than there has been in the past. So, I think that obviously the Cowboys have dealt with injury. There's no Terrence Steele here, but I think that will settle as the Cowboys offensive line kind of maybe doesn't rotate nearly as much. But I am still concerned about the idea that, it feels like 1 or 2 times a game in like critical moments, the offense like loses momentum or just seems like unable to kind of. Yeah. And it's like, it's crazy because they like, the drives before that, and then you'll see it in drives afterward. They'll be dominant. It's like that's not never a problem. It really is just trying to get that first, positive gain on some of these drives. And then once they do, they kind of just seem to roll with that momentum.
I know people want us to talk about Tyron Smith. We can a little bit. I think it's only fair that you and I we go back and watch the film. There was moments where he looked good. There was a couple of moments he got beat right off the snap, and that might be from just rust or not playing right tackle.
Getting used to the cadence again.
Yeah. We'll talk about that more as the week goes on, but we should talk about the last play of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, we should, right?
Yeah, we should. But I mean, look, it happens. It was unfortunate. It was terrible. But I mean, and look, that again, like, it would be great if Noah Brown had. Would be great, but like, it would be easier. I feel like if Noah Brown had that like 4 drops this game, like hadn't been able to do anything. Noah Brown played a pretty darn good football game in this game, but that was a eminently catchable ball. And
most of the time, if you drop that, it just goes right to the ground. It doesn't pop
and
up.
That's what I'm talking about, right? Like that's what seemingly has been happening lately, is that it's not just that the Cowboys have had like, okay, they haven't done it, right? It's that when they fail, it's like they oopsie Rube Goldberg their way into an interception, like, 9 out of 10 times too. It's just like, it's maddening. The number of like volleyball ball goes up in the air interceptions this year, tipped pass. I mean, not even tipped passes, like literally balls just get that clap off of the receiver's hands and just are free floating in the air with defenders on eyes on them. The number of times that's happened this year has just been outrageous, honestly. And
It was a fine throw. Throw wasn't anything part of it. Dak made a good play after having to kind of scramble around and look for a secondary receiver. It's just really bad, unfortunate luck, and it seems like I don't know. I don't know. It's just so strange, right? Like they've gotten some really nice bounces on defense, but on offense, man, it's been some weird things have happened to them this year on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there are certainly, we're not even talking about Dak because I know that Twitter is probably exploding with how
He
soon
had
are you going
one
to
really
ditch
bad
Dak?
throw on his first interception. The second one obviously is not his fault. It's not.
Yeah, I think he played a fantastic game. I think he
Yeah.
looks great. That's the one thing that kind of continues to give me hope is that I think him and CD Lamb are as good a quarterback receiving duo as in the league right now. I mean, so I think that's something to hold on to. But I think right now you've got some issues that you still have to get resolved on the defensive line, that you've got to get a pass rush back up and running again. You've got to figure out your offensive line to get some stability there, because I think it was affecting the stability of your run game. And listen, the pass protection too, it wasn't perfect. There were definitely,
No.
Dak was getting pressured a lot,
Tyler
so
Smith struggled a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, he certainly did. And so I think, some of these things are improvable and fixable. Some of them we've got to, kind of go out there and look for answers, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what the Cowboys come up with.
It's just a tough loss because if the Cowboys would have won that game, right? Let's say they get to stop Ron Kearse tackles Evan Ingram in bounds, and Jacksonville doesn't have enough time for a field goal. I think we're feeling pretty good that you survived a road game. Now you're going home against the Eagles. You're going to see if you can, play against the best team maybe in the league, and if you can go toe to toe with them. Now it's tough, right? Like if you lose this game, what's going to be the motivation for this team the rest of the season? Does Mike McCarthy start resting some of these guys? It's just going to be a weird end of the season for a team that basically has the number 5 seed locked up and still has 3 games left to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got things to work through. Even if we go into this game and we beat the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to have things to work through on the other side of this. I mean, they're not a perfect team, and no team is perfect. So I definitely think that resting players this early, even if no matter what happens Saturday, right? We're playing Saturday, right?
Yes.
No matter what happens Saturday, like it's whatever happens, no matter what happens after Christmas, like I think you still got to play some of these players.
I just want to
maybe
play better.
I think they want to play better, before they start getting into these playoff games. I don't think that they want to just sit folks and then hope for the best when they have to show up in Tampa or San Francisco or wherever they're going. So I think they want to see themselves play better football, whether that's against Philadelphia or the following week. I don't know, but there's still more football that they would like to improve on, and they still got a ways to go. This is still a young team. There's still improvement that can be made, but it's time to do it. Yeah, like it's time to kick it into gear at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe this is one of those losses that kicks them into the gear. Maybe this is what they, we say that every time they lose, but
I would have thought the barely beating the Texans last week would have done it, but maybe not. Maybe they actually needed to lose a game a little bit. And maybe this is a good wake-up call that, hey, you can't just sleepwalk for a quarter at a time and think that you're always going to be able to come back and win these games. Like, you've got to put teams away in the NFL, especially now, right? Like, and we saw this all weekend long.
At least it wasn't, I will say this, at least it wasn't more of the same. It wasn't a slow start that, like, they finally wake up from at the end. Like, I know we lost this game and that's not reassuring, but at least that's not some kind of chronic thing that can kind of continues to haunt the Cowboys necessarily. Yep. So maybe they've figured out a new way to lose games. Who knows?
All right. That is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen today. Now make your second listen to Locked On Sports Today podcast. Peter Burkowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Landon, we got a busy week coming up. We're going to be doing some all 22 stuff. We've got to get ready for this big Eagles game. I guess maybe it's not so big, but it's a big rivalry game.
It's still a big game. It's still a big game. Who cares? Anytime you play the Eagles,
Sure.
no matter what the records are, it's a big game.
Yeah. Check us out on YouTube. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you guys next time.